Good evening. My name is Jennifer Arvisu, and I'm the operations manager with Roots and Roads. And so for those of you who may not be familiar with Zoom, we just wanted to give you kind of a little what's what on the app. There's lots of buttons. So down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a microphone icon, and that's where you can mute and unmute yourself. You will have access to your microphone all evening. Sometimes we disable them, but this evening we are going to have you be able to do that yourselves. And then also, if you want to start and stop your own camera, that's the camera icon down at the bottom. That's if you have to get up for any reason, take a phone call, whatever it is, you can go ahead and turn off your cameras. I know a few of you already have your cameras off, but we'd love to see your lovely faces. So if you want to turn those on, but if you prefer to be behind the scenes, that's totally fine too. Do you have a question, Phyllis?
I do, but not exactly about what you're talking about. I just was wondering, is there going to be a December program, David?
There is not. We don't have a program in December. We'll pick it up in January. And
Okay.
I'm glad you asked that. At the end of this session, we're going to let you know what's coming up in January, February, and March, so you can get ready for all those sessions.
So then when do you send out the email for the January to register?
That'll come in sometime in this early December. We'll send it out. We're still working on getting all the registration pages up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So back to the controls. Also, there is a chat icon. So if you have any questions that pop up for you, but you want to wait to ask, or if you have any technical questions about Zoom, you can put that in the chat and I will be monitoring that. And then because we are going to have you guys unmute to ask questions, just to kind of keep things in order, down at the bottom, there's a little happy face. It says reactions. There you can actually raise your hand and it'll put a little hand emoji up on your screen, and then we'll be able to call on you to unmute at that point. Okay. And with that, as many of you know, we're Roots and Roads, and our vision is to transform the end-of-life experience into the final act of living well. And to do that, we kind of have three mission areas. The first is to provide supplemental support for hospice patients and their loved ones. We also educate the community about end-of-life issues through our virtual sessions, like the one we're here for tonight. And our newest, it's about a year old now, endeavor was supporting healthcare decisions through an online resource called the Crosswalk. So I don't know if many of you have visited the Crosswalk, but since about December, we've helped quite a few people make the best care decisions possible. We provide this free, it's online, and you can locate resources, connect to supportive services. So if you haven't checked that out, there's a QR code that you can get that off of your phone. It'll directly take you to the website, or you can go to rootsandroads.org/thecrosswalk. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. So we want to just take a moment and thank our amazing sponsors throughout this year that have made this series possible. The Connie Hillman Family Foundation has been a wonderful supporter over the years, as has Pima Council on Aging and Casa de la Luz Hospice, who have been helpful throughout this year. And tonight, we particularly want to celebrate Right at Home, in-home care and assistance, who has been supportive of our mission and our vision for many years. And particularly this night, we're so grateful to their participation and being able to help facilitate this important conversation. And we want to thank many individuals who have also donated to make this this evening possible. You can see them up on your screen, but we so appreciate each person who participates each month, but then also when folks feel that they're able to be able to make a financial contribution. It goes a long ways to ensuring that we're able to continue to provide this important education to the community free of charge. So thank you all for your support. And now I get to introduce Karen. She is celebrating 10 years as the owner operator of Right at Home, in-home care and assistance here in Tucson. Prior to coming to Arizona, Karen worked as an electrical engineer in telecommunications. And she says she also worked as a domestic engineer raising her 2 children. Karen is a certified senior advisor and an Arizona licensed fiduciary. She continues to combine her problem-solving skills, life skills, and credentials to ensure the aging population understands the many choices and options to living their best life. So we are so grateful that Karen is with us tonight, and we're going to turn things over to you now, Karen, and thank you again for entering into this conversation with us.
Sure. Thank you all so much. Thanks for joining us this evening. I got a little introduction, so you get a pretty good picture of who I am, but I really love to do programs like this because I think knowledge is power. And so the more we can start a conversation and encourage people to be curious about it and be prepared for whatever might come, then the better off we all are. So that's the intent in me doing this. And I hope that whatever we talk about will be useful to you and your loved ones and your friends. And feel free to interrupt, ask questions, and especially at the end, if you have any particular challenges you'd like to discuss and would feel comfortable in front of the group, I'd be happy to help with that as well. So that being said, when I was asked to speak about this, I named this program Warrior Caregivers. So let's talk about what is a warrior caregiver? Why would I put those words together? Well, after doing this for 10 years and watching a lot of people, great caregivers, especially family caregivers and professional caregivers, they're all the same in some of their behaviors. And a warrior caregiver is somebody who's really dedicated to taking care of somebody, super dedicated, super conscientious, wants to make sure they're doing the right thing, almost to the point sometimes a little smothering, right? Because that's your intention is to really care for them. And they never give up. You're always striving for excellence. And one of the things that I see people doing, they're trying to do the right thing, right? You want to make the right decision. You feel very responsible for somebody. So I always want to remind people that there's no one way to live this life and take care of the people that need to be taken care of. There's lots of different great ways to do it. So, keep an open mind and be willing to adapt to whatever that situation comes to. And one of the other characteristics that's really prominent with warrior caregivers is they're super protective, right? Super protective. You're protective of who you're taking care of. You're protective of the environment. You're protective of everything. It's instinctual. And so I love all those characteristics. But the other thing that happens along the way, if somebody has a particularly long or challenging journey, is the warrior caregiver loses themselves. It's very easy to lose your perspective. It's easy to lose your footing because you just never know what's going to happen, and you're reluctant. Sometimes you get stuck, and all for the right reasons and all for good intentions. So tonight I consolidated kind of a list of what I try to tell people, and hopefully you've heard it before in some way, but I want it to come back to you when you really need it. So in particular, when you start caring for someone, you don't know where it's going to go. So I would tell everybody to assume that it's going to be a marathon. Prepare for a marathon, and that will help you get some other helpers in place and help you think about things so it doesn't become quite so stressful and so overwhelming. So you got to pace yourself. So the term I use for this is put your oxygen mask on first. You hear that all the time in the airplane, right? If you're a parent, put yours on first so you can take care of your children. This is very much no different than that. You really have to make sure you take care of yourself before you can really take care of others. And it's not how we start doing it. I don't know that anybody who started taking care of somebody thinks, okay, today the first thing I have to do is take care of myself. Did I have breakfast? Do I have something to eat? I fed everybody else. I've washed everybody else. I've done the laundry. I walked the dog, but did I actually eat something nutritious for myself? Did I get enough sleep, or was I up, mopping the floors while everybody was off of them? I mean, it's all those things that you really have to think about. And most importantly, make sure you unplug or set aside some time for yourself that's uninterrupted, that allows you just to be quiet or to do whatever it is you want to do. Whatever it is that helps you center yourself, that's what you need to be doing. And in particular, keeping some connections outside of this caregiving job and outside of the home in which you're doing it. It can become very, very isolating. So make sure you take care of yourself first. And another piece of advice that I find myself giving a lot, including to myself, right, is just because you can do it doesn't mean you should be doing it. Mm-hmm. Just because you know how to do it does not mean that you should be spending your time doing that if you have all these other things to do in addition. So I think we don't think about that because we're already in the habit of doing it. So we're just loading stuff on top of it, what we're already doing. So remember that just because you can do it does not mean you should be doing it at this point. Especially for spouses. We've just been through this with my mom and my dad. My dad was the warrior caregiver. And just because he did know how to do everything did not mean he should be doing it or should be doing it from sunup to sundown, because he too is in his 80s. So it's not the same. So make sure you check yourself on that. And you say, how do you do that? Well, the first thing I usually tell people when we're going in to help them is to say, what are you doing? What's your task load? And what are you doing that somebody else could easily do that doesn't bring you any joy and takes a lot of energy, right? So those are the things you want to put on your list first and just get rid of them. And I promise you're not going to miss those things. When you think about it that way, really prioritize where you're going to spend your energy, because your real gift as a warrior caregiver is your spirit and your presence and your ability to stay engaged and not get grumpy and not get tired and not lose your temper. All those things that come along with when we get tired and we do too much. So if you're one of those people, then say, what can I unload? And I can tell you what people mostly unload, which is, well, I hate changing the sheets on the bed, so get rid of that. I hate cooking, so get rid of that. But whatever it is, you're the only one that can decide that. Keep the things that you find joy in or that give you some satisfaction. But otherwise, start unloading some of these other things. You can always take those jobs back if you want them back later. But I would encourage you to pace yourself and unload on some of that. One of the things that I tell employees, I tell family members, I tell everybody, which seems like something not very important, but let me tell you, protect your back. Seems like a silly thing to say, but caregiving can become very physical and unexpectedly physical, right? So, don't take any risk. If you both end up on the floor, then you're out of options. And you don't want to get hurt. So one, I would say, don't do a lot of heavy lifting and don't do a lot of those kind of transfers if you're not rock solid on that. Secondly, get some training on how do professionals do that? How does the smallest little nurse come into the hospital room and move the biggest man? Well, it's physics and it's technique. So make sure if you are doing some physical work, that you're really protecting yourself first. And if you can't do it, then stop. Put them back down safely. Nothing's going to be worse than both of you getting hurt. And then we even tell caregivers to do that, right? It happens to professionals where you do something you've done every day for 2 years, and then one day they can't do it successfully. What do we say? Get everybody safely situated and call the office for help. We'll send somebody else to help, or call 911, and the paramedics are happy to come help get somebody up off the floor. So protect your back and the rest of your body for that matter. But I always say your back is usually what's going to get hurt first if you overstrain or do something with the wrong technique. And then lastly, in the put your oxygen mask on first category, I would say know your limits. You have limits. So think about what those are, and think about what happens when you go past those limits, whether it's emotionally or physically. And for some reason, when we're in this caregiving mode, we kind of just keep stomping all over that, whereas we were pretty good at it before. But know what those limits are and respect them, and know when you're hitting them, and just take a moment. If you push too hard, it takes a lot longer to recover than if you stop before you've crossed that limit. Our ability to recharge and rejuvenate after a very long day or a very long trip, or however you want to look at that, as we get older and as we get more tired, it takes longer to recover than it's worth. So I would encourage you to kind of shrink that time in and make sure you're staying well within your comfortable limits, so you don't get set back even further, because that's when people start feeling overwhelmed. So you can avoid that with a little bit of help. So the kind of next section that I categorize, what I think we talk about a lot, is build your dream team. And what is your dream team? Why do you need a dream team? Well, the same thing we talked about at first. You don't know what this journey is going to be and how complicated it's going to get. You don't know how long it's going to last, and you don't know how frustrating emotionally it can get. So build your dream team. And who's part of your dream team? When I build a dream team and put together care plans for people, what am I looking for? I kind of look at it philosophically as body, mind, and spirit. So what does body mean in building your dream team? That means really who are the people? Who are your physical resources that you can call on? Of course, your doctors are going to be on that dream team, your therapists, maybe your neighbors, your caregivers, your family, hospice providers, even just sitters, volunteers, and drivers. You might need a driver for your dream team. There's lots of resources that you might need. And so, just make a list of those things, of who are these people that could help, and who do I need? Who do I need their advice? Whose advice do I need when things get tough? So, when I think your doctors and their teams, if they have social workers and if they have medical assistants, make sure that who you're dealing with you can get to. Make sure you know how to find them in an emergency, and make sure they're going to be responsive to you. And when you have appointments with them, make a list. Go in with a list. This is my list of questions, and how do I make sure that I can find you if I really need you, and especially for specialists. So when you're talking about your body and your providers, it's all those team members that you might need, different sects of people. In the next section, when you talk about the mind part of it. What is your mind? Your body, your mind. And your mind is, I really put in that category, knowledge, research, resources. What are you going to need there? Well, of course, doctors and social workers come in very handy. Religious leaders support. Your community support, PCOA, Roots and Roads, all these people who have resources and who have done this before. Get familiar with them. And if you have a support group, if you find a support group that helps with that topic. And I know people are pretty reluctant to join those many times because what you're going through is very personal, it's very private. But I would encourage you to find a safe space, because the magical thing that happens in a support group is you realize I'm not the only one. And whatever they're doing, whatever the person you're taking care of is doing, they're really not doing that to me. At some point, it becomes very personal, especially when you're dealing with Alzheimer's or cognitive challenges, and then you've got physical challenges. When pain gets in the way, people aren't themselves. And I think it's important to realize that they're not doing it to you. You're not alone in that. And if you can hear what other people do to cope with it or to redirect it, people are very clever, right? So they can come up with an idea that will work for you. How am I going to get her, into the shower when all of a sudden we don't like water? Well, we got to figure out how to keep them clean, right? So we got to figure that out. But how do other people do it? So I really do like support groups, even though I think when you're in the middle of it all, you feel like I don't have time for that. Well, there's lots of online ones, and you all have figured out how to get online today. So I think there's something out there for you that you can learn from, and that can be of great support to you. So when you're looking at building your team, make sure you've got some of those systems in place. And then lastly, take care of your spirit. Take care of your spirit, take care of whoever's spirit you're in. Make sure you've got the professional, emotional support you're going to need for all these challenges. Before you hit a breaking point, or before you're really just not yourself and you're not your best. When you look at emotional support, find some joy, and in this category might be really the appropriate time to make some new memories. What's really hard, I think, about caregiving is most of the time, the people we care for aren't getting better. They might have a better day today than yesterday, but in the trend, their trend is not going upward, right? So it's very easy to kind of get drugged down with that and to miss all the things you were able to do before with them and without them. But I think if you can recenter yourself on those things and try to find something else that might bring joy, and you don't know until you try it, but I always say start with your sensory activities, right? Whether it's food or eating, what is it? Peanut butter and jelly. I mean, how long has it been since you had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Have a picnic. I mean, go back to what you would consider more playful things, because they will take you back to a place that has some joy and has some memories. Music is magical. It really is magical. So it's like when my kids were little, my pediatrician would say, well, if kids are crying, just put them in water, put them in the bathtub, tick them in the pool, they'll stop crying. So, I think with most people who've lived in this world a while, if you put on some music, it will make them stop for a minute. It will take them back and bring them some joy. So music, touch is super important. smells, all those sensory things that we think about in appropriately stimulating children and exposing them works with all of us at any time in our life, but especially when you're caregiving with people. So make some new memories, find something new to do that might keep you occupied, and take your attention someplace else for just a few minutes. And that can make a huge difference in your day. Sometimes we do puzzles, and sometimes we do, coloring books, or watercolor painting is very forgiving and very fun. So think out of the box and think back to something else that would that actually both people usually benefit from doing. Okay, so how are we doing so far? Everybody kind of with me? I can see some of you. Okay. All right. All right. So the next section of what I really encourage people to do, this is where the engineer in me comes out. So stick with me. You'll be glad it did. Have a plan and have a backup plan. It sounds awfully boring, doesn't it? But I encourage you to really think about that for a couple of reasons. One, when you're not in a stressful situation, you and the person that you're taking care of can really think about, well, what would be important? What would I want to do? And you can change your mind, but at least you've thought about it, and you're not going to just be spinning your wheels. So have a plan for whatever might kind of come your way. You don't know exactly what's coming, but if you've used your mind in the step before, you have done some research, you have a general idea of what to expect. And if you don't, then ask somebody, what should I be prepared for? Backing up just a little, my favorite question for doctors who are helping through this, or hospice providers, my favorite question is, if this was your mother or your father, what would you do? Right? It recenters every single conversation. It works every time. And it makes everybody really think of them as a person, but it also helps you get their best advice, right? Because they're going to say, oh, okay, well, here's what I would do. And they might not think about that when they're in a clinical type setting, but you'll get some great advice that way. So when I say have a plan, what am I thinking about, right? Well, I'm thinking, what would you do if you could plan the rest of your journey? What would it be? Okay, that's your ideal. We might have a few bumps in the road, but at least we kind of know the general direction we'd like to go and how we'd like to spend our time and energy. And then I'm really thinking about that emergency that can happen. And this is terrible. I say it's a terrible phrase. I use it a lot, so I still like it. But it's, if you got hit by a bus, what do we all need to know? And so I'm pretty sure nobody's going to get hit by a bus, because in 10 years, nobody's been hit by a bus. But if you were not able, if something happened to you suddenly, where do people start to take care of this person that you've been the warrior caregiver for? And so what does that look like? Well, some great ideas that have been implemented in the past is, just a plain old 3-ring binder that's got all the important information in it right there in the kitchen on the kitchen counter where everybody can find it. And you would have everything in there, right? Your information, the patient's information, doctor's information, allergies, medication list, important things to know. The thing I always ask people, do you have any metal in your body? And if so, where? So we know at the ER to say, stop, don't do that. We can't do that. So those kinds of things are what I'm talking about, like almost an emergency little binder Bible that can tell us what do we need to do next, so that we can keep the person that you've been taking such great care of comfortable, calm, and in a routine until we can assess what is your new normal. Is this just a hiccup in the road, or do we have a bigger problem? So, and then on top of it, when you keep this kind of book with all this information in it, it helps you, because as you get more busy and more tired, you can go back and see, oh, this was we changed this medication because of this. You can keep kind of a log of that medical journey. And then as other providers come in to help you on your team, you can say, I already have all this information. Here's where we are. And then, you know, if there are physical limitations or cognitive limitations, put those in there so that whoever is stepping in for you can be successful. Like at 2 o'clock, they like to watch, you know, Days of Our Lives. Okay, we can't miss that. So all those little things that you know intuitively, because you do it every day, put them in down someplace so others can step in and help for a little while and keep everybody calm. And then I say build a safety net. This is kind of what I really encourage everybody to do. Make sure you've got a team of people. Go back to that dream team and build that safety net. I hope you never have to use it, right? I hope you never have to call anybody on that list. But if you do, they know what to do, and then it gives you a little bit of time to get your footing back and figure out what's the next step for everybody. And the real thing that this exercise does, because this is probably one of the more uncomfortable exercises, a little tedious and it's not very fun to think about. But the one thing it does in the long run is it gives you some peace of mind. You'll be so surprised how much getting that out of your head and onto something relieves you a little bit, so that you also don't worry. There's a lot of peace of mind in that, and knowing I have a plan, I can change the plan, but I at least kind of have thought through what I'm going to do. So it takes some of the fear out of the situation, and everybody who does that is always a little surprised by that, I think. So, so that would be kind of my not fun but important thing to do in your spare time. But you'll find that you become dependent on that, and it is super helpful. So the last category I like to really talk about and challenge people to think about is the real value that you have as the caregiver for somebody. Is you have really all the knowledge. You get up every day, you notice those changes. When the changes happen in very small increments, you don't always notice those things, even you as the caregiver. So I encourage you to keep a log of things, whether it's blood pressure, quantity of food somebody eats, their toileting habits. And it depends on somebody's condition as to what might be really important to track. But noticing those small changes can save you a lot of heartache. You know, UTIs are really the biggest thing we come across. And if you can recognize that before anybody else, then you're way ahead of the game, because otherwise people can get very sick very quickly, and there's a lot to do there. So I would encourage you to keep some semblance, so you know what is normal. And you know, if something has changed, you would want to figure out, well, what does that mean? Is that something I should be concerned about? Is that when you go to the doctor, you say, what does this mean? And that could be a very good indication of something else that you could prepare for or prevent. So be really present. And this is hard to do. It's hard for any of us to do. Forget being a caregiver and doing it, but be very present and try to pay attention to whatever's changed from the day before, and make a note of it. Your out of town family will notice that, right? If it's been months or since last Thanksgiving when they've seen you, when they come in, they notice a whole lot that's changed, and you're like, well, yeah, it did, can't walk as good as he used to, or whatever, but there'll be more happening than you're paying attention to. So, and pay attention to those emotional changes. Behaviors and emotional changes are really good indications for you about what else somebody might need. And you might, the depression and grief that enters into this space creeps in and stays in often. And it's really important and it's really meaningful to address that. I say don't dwell on it, but if you address it, it's like the same thing as peace of mind. It seems like a horrible idea because you don't want to think about that. That's not where you're going to spend your time and energy. But your ability to process that in a constructive way, and usually with a professional is helpful, will really make a difference in your journey and your ability to be present and enjoy what there is. And they say live your last days. So pay attention to that part too, especially for yourself. You can't discount how you feel about what you're seeing. I always say that about most people is, the person you're taking care of is going to be what they're going to be. They're on the trajectory that they're on. But the one who's going to get worn down and who takes the brunt of it is that primary caregiver, for sure, every time. So make sure you really are paying attention to that and don't discount it, because it is taking up a lot of energy, whether you're going to admit it or not. So, I encourage you to be adaptive. Be willing to reevaluate and scrap whatever you thought your plan. Start over, and go down a rabbit hole and fight a battle that is not going to be winnable. So I would encourage you to adjust your sails a little bit depending on where the wind's blowing on that day. And that's not easy to do. Warrior caregivers, have a regiment, they have a schedule, they have a boxes to check off to make sure that the things that they've done, right? And you have to be careful not to get too caught up in that if it's going to frustrate both of you. So sometimes you just need to scrap it and say, let's just start over, let's do something totally different, and then see where we are. But the same thing for activities. I think that's what's hard for people to do, is to adjust to what they can't do. And then a lot of people start looking at it and saying, I can't do this anymore, I can't do that. Well, go back up to your other learnings and say, well, what can we do? Well, maybe we could do watercolors today. Maybe we could go listen, to the symphony today. Maybe we could, just do something different, even though it's not how you spent your time in the past. And then I would say, one way to look at some of this that is sometimes helpful for people if you've raised children is when you look at caregiving, realistically, you're looking at raising children in reverse. And so if you can think of it that way, you might can avoid some falls or some frustrations, and the fact that you're not going to overschedule. You're going to make sure you leave time and space for less energy and less mobility. And you can orchestrate all those social interactions that you want so that everybody's present for them and gets the real joy out of whatever that is, and who's coming to visit, or what you're going to go try to do. But you have to pace yourself. And when I say that, you as the primary caregiver needs to make sure that you are able to go do, as the world gets smaller for the person you're taking care of, you need to stay out in the big world at some level. Your world can't get that small and that confined, because you too will be affected by that. So make sure you keep some things to do and some friends that you will make sure you take time to go do. You need to talk to other people who are at your same activity level and cognitive level, and make sure you stay engaged with the world, because the world is still happening while you're working from sun up to sundown to keep somebody safe and happy. So that kind of brings me back to where we started the discussion, which is pace yourself, allow others to help you, and do your best to try to remember to take care of yourself first, so that you can be there for the long haul and filling what roles need to be filled for both of you. So that's kind of my top talking points. So questions or comments?
Yeah,
Yes.
Philip, did you have something?
Well, Karen, I just really want to say thank you, because I took care of my parents. Unfortunately, it's like 10 and 14 years, so you weren't around. But everything you've said applies, you know? I mean, there are things I didn't know, like I didn't keep a notebook. I mean, there are just some things I didn't know, but you kind of do it, well, for me, you do it the best you can from your heart in the best way that you can. But I'm sitting here listening to you, and it's hard not to cry, because so much of what you've said is just so right on. It's so right on. And I want to thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad it resonated with you. And the hope is that when you need this information, you hear that little voice in the back of your head that gives you the wisdom and gives you pause to stop and think and do what's best for both of you. Yeah.
We hope you can remember, because for some of us, we don't have parents left, but we're going to have spouses. Somebody's going to take care of somebody, no matter how you look at it. So to remember that you're there, because sometimes when you get ensconced in this mess, you forget.
You do. It's so easy to forget. It's so easy to be just sucked into the whole thing. It really is. And sometimes it happens very quickly. Yeah, that's a lot.
Karen, I was wondering if I was really touched by the reflection that you had, that when you're in the caregiving role from day to day, it's hard to notice the changes sometimes. And it's sometimes the people who come into town and after they've been away for a while that will notice things that are dramatic that we just adapt to as the caregiver from a day to day. And it's before we know it, we just keep doing more and more because more and more is needed, and we may not even notice that we're doing more. When I think about, people would ask us, well, when is the right time to call hospice? And there's a lot of different right times, and there's a lot of different situations that might be there. We would have a few questions that we would ask people that then would be a gauge. Do you find that there are similar questions that people can think about to determine whether or not it's gotten too much for a person and maybe bringing in more help is needed at that time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can think of several kind of typical situations that come up. One is usually around helping somebody bathe, right? Getting in and out of that shower, even when we're still fairly physically okay, can be kind of dangerous. So people will often say, well, they'll often do that job for their spouse in particular much longer than they should for their own safety. So that's one area that I say that's not worth taking a risk over. Get somebody to help do that, because that is a dangerous spot. So I think that's one of those things of, and if you ask them, has somebody slipped, or has anybody been on the floor, or has there been a close call? And they'll always say yes. And I say, that's your nudge, right? That's your nudge. And people know when they've been nudged. They don't like to say it out loud. But if you're honest with yourself at the end of the day, you can say, that was my nudge. I was given a free pass there. I shouldn't let that happen again. So that's probably one. The other one would be maybe when somebody, when it becomes too difficult to get people in and out of the car, to go to the doctor, to go get whatever it is that you're doing, or that you're dragging that, I say dragging, that sounds awful. You're dragging that person to come with you to your doctor's appointments, right? That's not adding a lot of value to them. There comes a point where you're using all that energy, and when you look back at it, that isn't really how you would want to use your energy or their energy. You'd much rather both be in a better mood and have a nice little dinner or something. So that's one of those areas. And I didn't mention, but one of the things when we're talking about finding your providers and building your team, I think one of the greatest things that's happened to this sect, and COVID accelerated that for us, are all these services that now will come into your home. And your primary care doctor, people, these provider services that have been going into assisted living homes for many years are now going into individual homes. So you can emulate assisted living in your home, and they take your insurance. And what happens then that becomes your primary care provider. The doctor comes to your house, just like in the olden days. And all services just about are brought to you. Whether it's mobile x-ray, lab work, urine tests. There's a lot of infusions can be done at home now. There's a lot of services that can be pushed to the house. So being inquisitive about that, I think they'll become more and more popular, but I would explore that sooner rather than later, so you know what your choices could be there, especially for a couple where one person has progressed and needs more help sooner than another one, but you don't necessarily want to move to assisted living yet. You can certainly make that journey stretch it a little further and make it a little easier. So
Do you guys help with that, with how much can be done at home?
Sure. I say that. What I encourage people to do, just like you're saying, when do you know to go to hospice or whatever, I say we're happy to come out and do a meet and greet and take a look at what you've got and say, well, here are some options that you may or may not know about. And here, you might want to put this safety net in place. Get signed up for services with people. Like with our agency, if you never use it, I'm delighted with that. I'm just delighted that you know what we can do. And if you need it, you've got it. And if you never need it, then we'll celebrate that too. And there are many other people who are happy to do the same thing for you. So that you're familiar, and that you have the knowledge in time, rather than being what we would call behind the 8 ball and in a defensive position. We would love for you to pick your route and know your options. Yeah, but we'd be happy to help with that.
Do you find sometimes people will reflect to me if they're caring for their partner, let's say, that they are reluctant to share how maybe poorly their partner is doing out of protectiveness of the other person, their privacy. And what it ends up doing is making it nearly impossible for the caregiver to get the support they need. Do you find that to be the case? And how do you talk to people about the balance between protecting privacy and building your team, getting all of those things in place?
Right. Well, the real icebreaker for that conversation, and it might take a few times to do it. So if you're the primary caregiver and you know you're going to need some help or need some options, often the way to do it is to turn it completely around and say, I need help. This is not about you, because the person who's needing the help is the one who feels badly about that and who wants to, not relinquish control of things and let all that out. So probably one of the most powerful ways to do that is to say, well, I learned about this. We don't need it right now. So you kind of edge into it, but it's for me. It's not for you. And oftentimes people will warm up to that if they think they're not being the burden there, and they're not the, and even when it comes to bathing or doing some of those high risk physical activities, if they just say, it's for me, it's not for you, they might let somebody come help. Yeah. Go ahead, Dana.
So Karen, I would just say that I was going to mention that that's what I did with my father when I was, and my brother and my sister were helping me with caregiving. But we recognized we needed outside help. And so I had the conversation with my father that it definitely wasn't for him. It was for me to be able to have a life at the same time, which ultimately was exactly what he wanted for me. So it made it much easier than it was before, when it was.
I think so. You're right. The person who's needing the help doesn't want to be a burden to anybody.
Right.
I mean, there is a privacy part of it where you don't want the neighbors to know or this or that, but they already know, really.
Well, and the person that ended up helping us out, they became family. So, I mean, it was like a win-win. So if you can just, kind of make them believe that they're doing it for your benefit, which in the long run it is.
It is. And if you can, a lot of people can reach that logic. But what I do, and particularly in cases with dementia and cognitive, sometimes that need to control, and women in particular often will be, I don't want anybody else in my house. This is my house. So we hear that a lot, but it's unrealistic to keep that up. So cases like that, we might have introduce a caregiver that's not dressed like a caregiver, that's just dressed like a volunteer from the church or something. We don't tell them, we don't give them that title, and they're just there to keep company for a little bit and check, and what happens, especially with people who do have the cognitive decline, they will get used to a new person and a new habit. They will respond to how it makes them feel. They may not remember their name, but you'll be surprised. People think that will never work. It eventually works. You just have to keep trying and do it in small doses that are manageable. And then if you get a regular routine in place, then it becomes comforting and comfortable for everybody. It does work. It's hard to imagine when you're in it. It's very hard to imagine.
I think it was really important what you talked about in terms of the getting breaks on a daily basis, being able to have time for yourself. And I think a lot of times we feel like, oh, I'm just going to go and go and go. And then in a month, I'm going to take a break of maybe a weekend. But so many people echo what you said is it's really being able to count on that short period of time in the afternoon that I know I can just have a rest and not worry about if things are safe for that time. So it's kind of like that. If you have someone who's willing just to be able to be there for a short period of time, and then you know that things are watched and you can really unplug, it makes a tremendous difference, just to be able to have that routine in your day, because otherwise, like you said, sun up to sundown is exhausting emotionally, physically, spiritually, every way.
Right. And you really have to realize you're doing it for the other person. You really are. That's the best thing you can do for them, is to take care of yourself and fill up your cup with whatever it is that recenters you.
Did
Judy
anyone
shared,
have
oh,
anyone
sorry.
else? Yeah, no, I was just wondering if anybody else had a last question that they might.
Well, Judy shared in the chat that as a person who's been a team person, I found it helpful to be able to tell the person that I was helping that it was helpful to me to be able to know what I can do. I really wanted to help, but needed direction.
Yeah, exactly. People do want to help. People are happy to help. So that's why I say give them a job. If you need a driver, if you need a sitter, if you need somebody to, one of our people would buy all the groceries, and then the neighbor would cook the food, right? So you're not feeling like you're a burden. You're doing your part. So there's a million ways to do that, that people do like to be helpful. But they don't want to hurt their back. They're not going to do that heavy lifting part, and they're not going to do the personal care part, but they're certainly happy to do all the other things that you could come up with that would be helpful to you or the person you're taking care of. Yeah. Everybody needs a job. They do. Everybody needs a job to do, and they need to feel like they've done their part.
Thank you so much, Karen. This has been fantastic, just to be able to enter into this conversation at this level. And as somebody said, making it very personal and inviting, that it is so vulnerable to be in this role. And a lot of times people don't see themselves as caregivers when they are, and recognizing the importance of taking care of ourselves so that we can be there for others is a real gift. So thank you so much for all of that.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And I hope that you marinate on some of these ideas and share them with whoever needs them. And if I can ever be of help, I'm happy to answer any questions at any time and give you my best advice. And if I'm not the right resource, I'll tell you who I would trust to do that with. So.
And I have to tell you, folks, Karen means it. I've called her multiple times and just not knowing, and she's great at pointing folks in the right direction. So thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you.
So before we let you guys go, we have some announcements, and we also have our poll. We started doing kind of our post-session survey through the polling feature, and it's been really, oh, I said that, and then of course there's a tech issue, so we will send out the poll after the session in about a week when we have the recording available. I apologize about that. But we are excited to announce that we have our theme for our 2024 end of life education series. And so next year we will be talking about all things grief. It's carrying our grief. And David's going to share, we have our first 3 sessions scheduled. Registration will be opening probably in about a week or so. Look for an email to hit your inboxes to let you know that registration is live. But I'll turn it over so David can let you know what's coming up.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and by the way, Jennifer, I love the new features with the Zoom and how you're doing this. It's great. We actually look very professional. many of you reflected to us that you wanted to have more conversations about grief and loss and bereavement. And so we, for the first time, are dedicating a whole year to this topic. And we're going to kick the year off. Now, here's something to remember. This is January 25th. So normally we do it on the third Thursday of each month, but Dr. Joanne Cacciatore, who will be our presenter, wasn't able to do it on the third Thursday. And we really wanted her to start us off. She wrote a book that some of you might have read called Bearing the Unbearable: Love, Loss, and the Heartbreaking Path of Grief. Her focus a lot is on traumatic loss, but she is going to talk to us about, from her experience and work with people who are in grief, what good support really looks like from working with people who have been going through this and sharing their experiences with her. So we hope that when registration becomes open, that you will go ahead and register. It's going to be a fantastic first session and have a conversation with Dr. Cacciatore. And then in February, we will be showing a documentary called Speaking Grief. It's a wonderful video that not only helps us better understand what grief is, but also gives us ideas of how to show up for folks in our lives who are grieving, how to be there for them, how to be supportive of them, how not to be afraid of engaging with one another, so that we can provide a more supportive community to all of us. So that'll be a wonderful showing. And then we'll have a discussion following the film led by a local bereavement counselor from Harmony Hospice, Murray Flagg. So we're looking forward to that conversation as well. And then in March, we are very excited to have Dr. Ken Doka, who will focus on the mind-body connection in grief, how we carry our grief, what our bodies can tell us, and what ways of modalities of healing that can help in that process as well. So that's the very first 3 sessions. We have several others lined up that we will let you know about in the coming months. But we're very excited for this theme for the year, and we hope that you can join us each month for this.
Yeah, so as David mentioned earlier, we are taking a break in December, so we hope you'll join us in January. But while you're getting ready for your holidays, we wanted to just kind of let you know that there are a couple ways that you can support Roots and Roads and our vision to transform the end of life experience just by doing your holiday shopping. So we have signed up for ShopRaise, which is an app that you can download, and there are over 1,000 vendors that you can shop for gifts online, and a portion of those proceeds will come back to Roots and Roads. We're also part of Walmart.com's Spark Good program. So anytime you shop online at Walmart, you can select Roots and Roads as your charity of choice. And there's also Fry's community rewards. So if you link Roots and Roads as your charity of choice on your shopper's card, when you're all out there buying your turkeys and stuffing and all that, a portion of the proceeds can come to Roots and Roads. And new this year, we're very excited to announce that we are now a qualified charitable organization for the Arizona Charitable Tax Credit. So this is a dollar for dollar tax credit on your Arizona state taxes. So it is just for folks who are living in Arizona, doing taxes in Arizona. And so we just wanted to make you aware of that. You do have until tax day, April 15th, to make a contribution for 2023. We'll have some more information. We're building out our site coming up, so we'll share some more about that. But you can always consult your tax advisor for more information. Yeah. All right. So that's the end of our program for 2023. We hope you all have a very happy holiday season, and don't forget to come back and join us in January. Have a good night, everybody.